Now that our modeling's all done, we're going to move into creating the texture presets that we can use before we assemble our model, and then we'll be able to just drop those texture presets right onto our specified groups when we assemble. So here I've got just kind of a base color, and this really doesn't correspond exactly to any of the colors, so I'm going to make even a little edit on this just to even get kind of our base gray. Now there are two shades of gray in the particular ones that we're going to be looking at here. There's a lighter gray, and then there is also a darker gray, and then of course there's black and white, but let's start here with the shades of gray. And what I'm going to do is, instead of editing here in this diffuse color, I'm going to add a layer, and I'm going to add a constant layer, and then I'm going to create an instance of that, and another instance of that. One of these instances I'm going to set to specular color. The other one I will set to reflective color. And that way, when I go in here to this constant and I set up the color that I want, which in this case, this one isn't 100% gray. It has just a little bit of warmth to it. So I'm going to click a little bit of the yellow here. And let me open this up and give myself a little bit more space. So I can create a preset here. Okay, so there's that gray. Now let's click OK. And now this is going to, since these are instances, that's going to adjust my my specular color and my reflection color, and that's going to allow me to set these things up much more quickly. And here I'm also going to check my adjustments here. Now for the most part, we'll be able to use these settings that we've used for our diffuse amount. Let's set this up so these match 5 and 90% on our specular and our reflection and their Fresnels. And let's see, these are relatively shiny, so I'm going to take my roughness down to 30, just so if we do happen to get a highlight, it's coming out nice. Now what I want to do here too is I want to decide on a good camera angle for this, and I'm thinking what I might also do is I might add in a round piece with this, and then that's going to give me something a little bit better for preview sake. So let's go ahead and I'm going to add this into the scene here, and I'm just going to move it over. I'll just move it over 8 so it's in the right next adjacent slot here. Okay. So let's do this, and that way we'll get a little bit more of something to catch our reflections and our refractions with. Now we could use like the typical kind of Modos scene for setting up presets, but I'm going to use this because it's going to be much more content appropriate for what we're working on here. Let's see, let's kind of maybe angle that down just a little bit. I want to make sure that the logos are nice and clear to read, and then we get a good read on the color here on the flat side, and then also a good understanding of the reflective and specular properties. So that one will actually do for our light gray. So I'm going to go here to the base gray color, and actually here let's make sure that is applying to everything, and yeah, it is. Okay, because they both have base gray on it. Just want them is set to this item level mask, and we'll be cleaning some of those out as we assemble, but we'll just leave that there for now. So I'm just going to take this, right click, save preset, and I'm going to call this Modos light gray. And let's get into our content here. Nope. So let's go back to assets, materials, Modos. Well, there it is, Modos right at the top. And let's save that. And while we're here, I'm just going to go ahead and fire off a render. Okay, and we'll save this image. We're going to put this here with all our other ones. I'm just going to make a new subfolder in here that I'm going to call Material Presets. I'll call this light gray Targa. So let's close that down. And now let's go in here and let's look at creating kind of our other base colors here. So the dark gray actually just falls kind of down on the other half of the spectrum and somewhere around there. And it's a little bit more of a true gray, so I'm going to take out any of the little bit of color that I had in there and pull it down. Now you could photo source these if you want. I am just holding the actual thing up near the screen in even lighting and getting an idea of it that way. And I think right about there. And that's looking a little dark on screen actually, so let me just kind of pull that up a little bit. And I think that's looking a little bit more true to form, so let's go ahead and render that one out. Image dark gray. And then let's just take this whole thing again, save our preset. Dark gray. Save that. Now I can go ahead and start replacing these as I go. And again, since I've saved these as targets, they'll come with that alpha channel. If you want to save them in another format, you can get them on a surface. Just kind of depends on how you like to look at them. I personally like it this way. And I'm actually going to take here, I'm going to delete this one because we're just going to leave in these more finished ones there. So there's the dark gray and the light gray. Now let's also just handle the black since we're in here. So I'm just going to take this and I'm going to pull down. I'm not going to go quite to true black. I'm going to leave myself a little bit in the color department. Maybe 0.02 on all those. Yeah, that'll work. So let's save our preset. And we'll go ahead and render that out. Now, now that we got those, when we move on to the white here, with white we will sometimes come across an issue, and that's that it's not going to look white enough unless we make some adjustments. So we'll have to make sure that we, well, make those adjustments. And that's mainly going to be adding more diffuse amount to them. And so we'll do that. Okay. So I'm going to take here, I'm going to go up to pure white. You can see they still look a little bit off gray or off white, kind of grayish color. So I'm just going to take this, I'm going to drag it all the way up to 100%. That's going to give me more what I would expect. We don't want to see areas get totally washed out in the highlights. We just want to get that nice white color, and I think that's working relatively well there. I might even take, I'm going to actually overdrive my diffuse amount just a little bit here. Maybe to 105 or something. I think that'll work here. So let's go ahead and save that preset. White, render that off. And let's see, we're kind of rounding the home stretch as far as opaque colors here go. We've got a yellow and a blue left. Okay, so let's save that image. White. We'll put that in there. All right. And so now before we keep going, of course, let's go back and we'll readjust our diffuse amount, set it back to the 80%. I'll go to our constant again, and I'm going to look for just a little bit off of the straight yellow. Just a little bit down on there. And actually, no, I take it back. Let's pull that a little bit more around there. It's looking a little too greeny. Kick a little of the saturation off of it. It's one of the ones that kind of surprised me color-wise because I was thinking it would just be yellow, yellow, yellow. But yeah, it does have a little bit more orange and a little less saturation than you'd probably expect, or at least than I expected. Again, we're looking a little bit on the green side. pull away from that a little bit. There we go. And that one I'm also going to take and copy because we also have some yellow transparent ones here. So let's get that, go up, and we'll save our preset. Yellow, fire off our render. Fortunately, these renders are pretty quick. You could even set these down. If you're going to render them yourself, you could set them down even lower to something like 256, but you know, I like 512 because I'll let you, if you want, you can zoom in and see them a little bit better. So that's just my personal taste. And also I'll include these images too, so you'll have these if you want to apply them to your presets. If you're using all the same settings, they'll be identical. So yeah. So up to you. Let's attach our color. All right, and since we're, well, actually, no, sorry, we've got one opaque one left, so let's do blue before we move on to the transparents. The blue is relatively straightforward. It's a little bit off of blue. Let's get a little on the purpley side. There we go. Oops. And that'll do it. So let's go ahead and save that preset. Blue. Okay, so we're ready to look over at. Oops, sorry, let's start that. Ready to look over at our transparent ones. There are 3 transparent ones: red, yellow, and kind of a medium gray one. So as we get doing those, we'll have to think of a couple of things. And the main thing that we'll want to consider is our refractive index. And refractive index for plastic like this is typically going to be in the ballpark of around 1.4. So that's what we'll use as our starting point. We'll look at that. But before we do that, we need to change over our diffuse color to transparent color. Or, you know what we could do also here? I'm going to create another instance. And we'll set the instance to transparent color. And that way we can leave a little bit of diffuse color on. So I like to leave maybe 5% diffuse on, things like this. And then set my transparent up to maybe about 90%. It's not 100% through there. And I can go back to my constant here. And again, it's still linked up to those other 3 now. So let's start with our red one. And it's looking hair on the pinky side. So let's move it around this way just a little bit and kind of deepen it up just a touch. There we go, and that's what I come to expect color-wise. So, like I said, refractive index 1.4, I had actually already set that up here. So, refractive index of 1.4. If we go too much higher, it's not really going to look like that plasticky material, so that's good. And then on the absorption distance, I've set this at 2 millimeters, and you can experiment around here. But the idea is that if you look at these, when you start getting some thickness through them, that you're starting looking through like edge long at them, this is especially true in maybe the kind of the medium gray one, that's the canopy. You'll start to see that at these edges you get a little bit of thickness and a little bit of depth. And if I take this and turn it up to say 4 millimeters, you notice it's going to start to thin out the color a little bit. See, so right here we're getting a little bit more orange in it and not quite so red. That's not quite what we're looking for, and that way the light is actually penetrating a little too deeply. So we can try 3 here. 3's not bad, but I think I'm still going to settle in on the 2 millimeters that I had done before. So I see at 2 we're getting that nice even red all throughout. We're getting a little bit of darkness around some of these parts where we're looking through a thicker amount of the pieces, and that's really going to help when we stack together a few transparent ones. You'll get that light not quite penetrating all the way through. That's going to work pretty well. You may want to add a tiny bit of dispersion, but that's going to hit your render time, so I'm not going to leave it in, or I'm not going to put it in here. Probably would be somewhere in the order of 0.01 on dispersion would work pretty well, but that is going to slow your render time, so you know, it's kind of one that you can make your own call at. So I'm going to set it back to 0, just help me get a little quicker render. So let's go ahead here and save our preset, red trans, and we'll get our render off for that. Yeah, on the teapot, it's not going to make any sense whatsoever because the teapot is a lot larger than these are, you know, 100 times larger or something, so it's really not going to help. But doing them here, this will be much closer. Let's see. This is going to take just a minute, so I'm actually going to pause here for a second, and we'll come back. Okay, so there that is. Took a couple minutes, so I'm glad we paused. So let's go ahead and save that. Red trans, and we'll go ahead and apply that one. So let's place that one. Okay, so that looks about right. Let's see, we'll go on and do the yellow one here because the yellow is pretty straightforward. Again, we're just going to use this same yellow color that we got here so that we'll get consistency. And actually, that's looking pretty spot on right out of the box. Yeah, I'd say that's pretty good. Okay, cool. So I won't render this right here. We'll just go ahead and save it, and then I'll render the last couple here together, and we'll just pause for that. So let's save our preset. Yellow trans. Now with this one, I'm getting a little bit of an oranginess here. That's it almost looks like we get that a little bit. That might be something to check the absorption distance on. I might want to turn my absorption distance down just a little for this. 1.5. No, that seems to have made it worse. Always goes the other way. There we go. Let's try it at 3. A little much. Thank heavens for preview render. Yeah, I think I'm going to go back to 3. So I'm going to save that one at 3. I'm actually going to resave that one here. So let's go ahead and save our preset yellow trans. Yes, we want to replace the other one. Like I said, we'll come back and render that one in a minute. Now let's have a look at the gray colored one here. So I'm going to start by picking something here in the ballpark of this kind of middle gray. Actually, this one we want to use, I take it back, we want to use, I forgot, the lighter gray. So let's pull this in and check. Because with the gray on transparency, you get a surprisingly stronger amount of gray in there than you would expect. So it's important to check and make sure that you're not getting too deep in your gray colors. You can see this one I'm hanging around 0.5 on all these. I think I'm going to take the little bit of color out of it. Yeah, that's better too. I think that's working, you know, much better than it otherwise would. This one, again, we're going to want to check our absorption depth, looking in some of these edges here. Make sure that we don't get too deep, but actually this looks a little on the shallow side, so let's back it off a little bit. 2.5. Yeah, there we go. I think I like that. And I can just take this, and I think I'm just going to go a hair brighter. I'm going to go up to 0.6 on all these values. Or maybe 0.66. Yeah, I think I like that. Okay, now obviously there are clear ones with those. Here, let me go ahead and save this preset. Gray trans. There are some, you know, obviously that, you know, if you want to go on and be doing more of these ones that are totally clear, in which case you might want to go to white, but then also up your, where are we? Up your transparent amount, just like we did with the transparent, or excuse me, with the white colored one. And see, then we'll get these little kind of white highlights in there. Let me back that off just a little, actually. Maybe 97.5 or something like that. Yeah, so we get a little bit less of those, but we do see those kind of come through, and those reflections really pop there. And this isn't part of the set, but I'm kind of liking that. Let's see, well, I'm also going to change this down just a little bit, down to 2. And that's a little bit better too. So this is, like I said, isn't part of it, but I'm going to go ahead and save that preset. Clear. All right, so there we go. That's all of the colors that are in this particular one. Remember, it's really easy to go in and adjust these now. So if you want to make variations on these, that will be really simple. The way that we've set this up, we've got that constant in there, so all you have to do is click on that and change the color. If you have transparent ones, remember you have to adjust your transparency, but you can also start from a base one, like even this clear one here, as your base color. So I'm going to render these out here. Pause for a second, and then when we have all these reapplied, come back to a quick recap, and we'll finish up with this. All right, see you in a second. All right, so there those are. You'll note that this is not one of the colors we discussed. I took the liberty of adding in a red one, and then just because it's another primary color, then I added in green and brown, so you could have dirt and grass or leaves or whatever. One thing to note on the transparent ones, I did take these images into Photoshop, take the targas into Photoshop, and I went into the alpha channels, which were a little bit on the light side, and I just pulled the levels, pulled the center levels, which here I'll show real quick. Went and pulled the center levels, so just grab this and pull it down this way, and that's going to make your whites tend to be more white, or your grays also tend to be more white, because on these more transparent pieces, this came out really light and really transparent on here. So I just pulled the alpha channel a little bit more towards white. You know, again, all these images are going to be included with the video, so you can use those. But if you're making your own, just note as you make the transparent ones, it's going to probably you're probably going to need to adjust your alpha channel or render them all in a scene that does not have transparency. So, or save them out in a way that it doesn't have transparency. So up to you. So that is all of our texturing job. You know, the extra colors took a grand whopping total, including renderings, of about 4 minutes. So, you know, feel free. You can experiment with these colors really quickly and really easily just by changing that constant. So the setup was the big deal here. And setting this up properly, we're able to really maximize the potential for what we create out of them. We could also go in here and create patterns and different things to go on them, and you could do some pretty wild stuff and apply that to more than just, you know, little toy pieces like this. So that does it for texturing. We're ready to start assembling our model. See you in the next video.